All right, so there you go. All right, long time going through this, but I just got to warm you up for, that's the supply chain environment, okay? The supply chain management environment. At the macro level, there are all these factors that can impact on the viability of what you are doing. So, what is one big takeaway? Because people are thinking about, where do we locate the factory? Remember, the big question in week 1 and week 2 is, the first question is, do we source? Next question is, where do we source from? So, if we choose the location, there's more than one factor that affects the location. There's more than one factor. You cannot just say, oh, let's just go to China because they've got skilled labour. There must be other reasons. Maybe the infrastructure too. Maybe the more stable currency too. Maybe there's something else too. You've got to have 3 reasons to locate somewhere. So I'll give you an example of, when we'll finish this up, we'll move to the second stage of tonight's proceedings. All right, I'll give you an example of, you'll probably read about it when you fly internationally and you open up the airport shopping magazine and you can buy all these travel plugs where you can plug into any PowerPoint around the world. There's this company from Switzerland, it's a Swiss brand, and they have factories in China. They did have. Then they moved to Thailand. So, why would they move from China to Thailand? They moved their factory. They no longer manufacture in China. And I was talking to the CEO. I said, why did you move? And he said, 3 reasons. All right, so now, as your group, we've gone through lots of different factors now. These quizzes and all of that. I want you to write down, what do you think those 3 reasons were? It's a real company. They moved their factory from China to Thailand. So they moved country. They didn't just move inland into China. They moved their country. All right, you've got 1 minute to write down 3 reasons why this company moved its factory. 1 minute.
When was it again?
This happened they moved the factory about 5 years ago. They're making something like this, a universal travel adapter. Let's be very clear. All right, what have we got? 3. Have you written down your 3 reasons? It's in your head. On the board behind you. 3 reasons. Quick. On the board behind you, 3 reasons. Board behind you, 3 reasons. Go, quick, fast. We've got too many things to do tonight. 3 reasons. On the board here. Quick, 3 reasons on the board here now. Jayo. Okay, 3 reasons. 3 reasons. On the board out the front. Go. Okay, here's fine. Quick, stand. Guys. Up. Quick. Okay. Larger, so we can all see. Okay. All right. Let me think. I think I mentioned 2.5 of those reasons last week. I'm not sure about that 3rd reason, if I made it clear. Okay? This is it. This is the factory. It's a real factory. I found it. Yes, they moved from China to Thailand. So why did this factory move? This is it. Lifetrons. I'm not here to give you theories all the time. We've got to look at real stuff. All right? That's what they make. So, three things. What have we got? Labour cost ownership. What else? Still figuring out. Restricted policy, IP, labour costs, Asian countries. What have we got? Oh, I like. Where's this one? I like that. Labour costs. Maybe. Yeah, the labour costs. Okay. Come on, we've got to get it right. Yes. No. Yes. Okay. Yes. No. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. And yes. So now you should be able to figure out the three. None of you have got three, so now it's called mastermind. You've got to try and put them all together and figure out what are the three.
Government.
What about
No. Yes. Didn't help, did it?
how about high labor costs?
Oh, yeah, well, it's the same as everyone else, okay? Everyone's got that one, all right?
They got three.
Okay, all right. I think this group has probably got the closest. So take a note. Well done, group. All right, so let me explain what was going on. Okay, so this is the factory. Go and check where the factory is now. All right, it's a Swiss company making in China. They moved out of China to Thailand. I said, why did you move? And the CEO told me, he said, three things. Number one was the table was getting too high for the transactions they had to do in Guangzhou. What do I mean by that? Well, when they had to ship parts from other provinces, they had to pay corruption money to the truck drivers and different things. And there was a lot of things they had to pay to make things run smoothly, you know. So a bit of corruption there. Number two was the labour costs. You all got that. That's the easy part, all right? And number three was the IP protection. And he said to me, I said, how did you know there was an IP problem? He said, in our website, we check the analytics of our website. And when we're in Guangzhou, in less than 12 months, we get over 2 million hits on our website. And most of those hits were coming from Guangzhou. And it wasn't from customers. It was from competition. They look up the website, look for the designs, take photos to see if they can copy, and then, all right? Okay, so they moved it to Thailand. Is that going to stop them look on the website? No, but it will slow down the rate of stealing of intellectual property, because now you've got a physical distance between the factory and China. So the people you employ in Thailand, you know, are not going to leak ideas. They're not going to leak tooling. Or as one thing that did happen once to my friend in Shenzhen, someone pulled back up the car to the factory and actually put the tooling in the boot and then drove off soon after they were fired. Yeah, they physically took the tooling, put it into the boot and just drove off. All right. Okay. So, real story. And so, first hour summary. there are always factors that are impacting on where you're going to locate the factory. So, and what you also must realize is that, okay, China isn't the ideal place. No one country is perfect. There are always multiple factors. Because I saw the CEO less than 12 months later at another trade show. Oh, how's Thailand going? He said, oh, just after we moved there, the Thai government put the minimum wage up by 40%. So what's the moral of that story? Don't move factory on one factor alone. You must have several factors. You cannot just say, oh, we're going to Bangladesh or we're going to Vietnam because the labour is cheaper. You've got to have many reasons, because as you realise that wages are going up everywhere anyway, all right? So you've got to have many reasons for locating a factory in a particular area. And don't do what some Thai companies did, you know, leading up to the General Agreements of Tariffs and Trade? That was an agreement between all these countries other than China and USA, the Pacific Trade Agreement. Remember that before Trump came in? Are you familiar with that? It was a Pacific, it was an agreement between all the Pacific region countries, except China.
So TPPA. TPPA.
Yeah, TTPL. Yeah, so as a result of that, there's some Taiwanese companies, they invested like millions of dollars in factories in Vietnam to take advantage of it. Well, guess what happens? Trump comes in, boom, you know, and just, you know, we're not doing this deal anymore, you know. Yeah, so things happen. So don't locate a factory on one reason alone, one factor alone. You don't just move out of China because Trump has now got a trade war with China. You should have many reasons for locating a factory wherever you locate it. So think about that. That's the big takeaway. All right, second part of tonight. Let's get into it. Where are we? Have we got PowerPoint slide? Yes, we have. Okay. And then the third part of tonight, we need a framework for understanding China 2025. We need a framework. So this is kind of like a theoretical framework. If you look at innovation in countries around the world, you'll notice that some countries are very good at innovating from ground up, which is basically focusing on efficiency-based, probably R&D, science-based, or customer focus. But a lot of the developing economies, and China's one of them, Russia is one of them, there's several others, they focus a lot on, they're very engineering-based, or focus a lot on government plans. That is, so for example, China government, One Belt, One Road, China 2025. If you look at Silicon Valley, they're very big on the private investors, startups, and getting market share. That's more important than whether you got a viable product or not. Let's just get a market share out there. And collaboration is probably the key to sustained innovation over time. What is also sustainable and something you need to think about, we're going deeper than looking at, you know, labour factors, IP-related factors, you know, IP rights, entry threshold, all of these factors you just put up. We can go deeper than that. We need to think about the owner mindset. Who is the owner of the supplier you are buying from? Who is the owner of that factory? Like, you really need to go deep when you really want to develop a supply chain relationship. Okay? Wow. I didn't know you have to think about that when you talk about innovation. Innovation depends on where are you focusing? Are you focusing on the green, or are you trying to capitalise on the One Belt, One Road or the 2025, or are you doing what Xiaomi did and just focus on customer-focused innovation? And you do this is kind of more like the Silicon Valley approach to innovation. That is, let's just get market share first, we'll figure out the profits later. Just grab market, you know. Facebook, 2 billion users. figure out how to make money later. All right, and so that's why you'll see that when we look at the R&D, which is where sustainable innovation comes from, it is R&D driven, and that is not necessarily a key feature of emerging economies. Emerging economies have been slow to focus on R&D. Okay, a lot of emerging economies have focused on the government infrastructure, government-led. China's been big on that. Although what has happened more recently is that some of the unicorns, a unicorn is a startup with more than a $1 billion valuation, have started to focus on, let's get the customer first. Okay, what's the average margin of Apple? Sorry, I've just asked you a question. So I'm expecting you to yell out an answer. And if you don't know an answer, you can still yell out an answer. And if I say market share, then that answer is going to be between 0 and 100. Am I right? So if you yell out a number, you're going to get 1% chance that you're correct. That's if you're assuming that I know. What if I don't know? So just think in terms of deciles. All right? 20, 30, 40, 50%. They couldn't have 80%. So you got 1 in 4 chance of being correct. Okay, so use your professional mind to game your teacher. You understand here? 56%. All right, use your professional mind to game your teacher. Your teacher, that's me, doesn't know everything. All right, he's not going to know the exact percent. If he is, he might be making it up. All right, so let me ask you again. What is the margin of Apple?
In US or all around the world?
Do all around the world. What's the margin? 40, what we got? 40. Come on. 35. Come on, quick. 40. Okay, so if you look at their financial statements, right, the margin would come out around 30%, which is, if you look at their financial statements, okay? If you look at the iPhone, then the margin is even higher. Okay, so look at margin of the iPhone, we can talk about 50% more, okay? All right, bill of materials, less than $200 US, and they're selling for 800 plus add-on labour, shipping, things like that. Remember, shipping can be 10, 15, 20%. Okay, all right? All right, this is air shipping, not sea shipping. Okay, all right? All right, so, all right, why am I saying that? Because when you're a consumer focus, you don't focus on margin. Make a note, consumer focus is not margin focus. Consumer focus is about getting market share. How do you get market share? You just sell at cost. Give an example of a company that sold at cost in the last 5 years. Xiaomi, yes. What do we mean by cost? Huawei, they've gone up market now, but Xiaomi is the exact example of a company that basically sold at cost. Their margin, I think, was closer to about 3 or 4%. 3 or 4%. Like, that's not a sustainable margin, but that wasn't their objective. Their strategic objective is to capture market share. And then later on, then they got their brand out there, then they can start making money after that. And they're listed on the Hong Kong stock market for IPO last year of about $21 per share. It's now down about $8.90 per share. Okay? Anyway, they did a successful IPO. So that's what I mean by customer focus. Razor thin margins, market share. All right? Efficiency, Apple was down here in terms of let's do R&D, let's develop new products. And then we get the margin on that. You see what I mean? But the Silicon Valley model is let's just get people, let's just get bodies on our seats, let's just get bodies buying our product. Okay, why am I telling you this? Because the China government has focused a lot on the top area of innovation, technological parks, infrastructure plans, the Belt and Road, the China 2025, which I'm about to talk about right now. Okay, collaboration, finally, we talk about later in this course, where you've got all these brand names, they're collaborating with factories, so collaboration is another way of innovation. I want you to think about it. If you want to innovate, how are you going to innovate? Are you working with a factory in China because you're taking advantage of a government plan? Or are you collaborating with that factory? Or are you in China because you want to expand customer reach? Or you're in China because, well, in the end, you found the right owner that you can work with? This is an innovative framework to think about. Okay, if your plan is to make an innovative product in the future, then you need to think innovatively about who is in your supply chain and why are you sourcing from that country. It's not just sourcing from that country because of labour costs. You may be sourcing because of opportunities in one of these 4 areas, okay? All right, that's the big takeaway. That's a big thing you need to think about. Wow, this would make a lovely question for the quiz. So I just want to get you on this one. Made in China 2025. What is this about? This is the thing that has scared Trump. What do I mean? Well, what happened with the Made in China 2025 and about talk about is something that created a lot of angst in America, EU, other developed countries about how China may be taking over the world, technology-wise. Okay, the 5G framework. You heard about Huawei getting into hot water, and USA trying to stop all the other G20 countries from adopting the 5G network of Huawei, trying to ban it. Not successful yet. But what did that lead China to do? It led China to back off the accelerator in publicising the China 2025 plan. But up until about 2 years ago, this was a big media push that China was pushing out there. You know, we're going to be the best in the world. We're going to be leading technology of all the countries of the world. Then China realised, this is scaring other countries. We're not, it's nice to publish that we're going to be the best in the world by 2025, but this is scaring other countries. So much so that other countries started to question, oh, we better not source our infrastructure from Huawei. Wow. And so the China last year, late 17, early 18, they backed off publicising the 2025 plan. But you need to know about it. Why? Because it's something that's going on. But they did back off the pedal, okay? So how does the China government sort of back off the accelerated pedal when it comes to a plan like this? How does it do that? It does it by the following. It actually tells its local authorities to stop giving subsidised loans into these 10 industries, okay? It tells the publication outlets to stop talking about this plan. Okay, so both funding-wise and both media marketing-wise, they actually slowed down this thing. But you need to know about it. So what is the 2025 plan? It was to lead the world in innovation by 2050. Remember, 2049 will be the 100th year of the Communist Party, which they talked about in early white papers on the plan. But they said 2025 is sort of halfway towards that when we talk about this century. And so they want to be a front-runner country in innovation by 2030. They want to be this, and this. And you're thinking, wow, if you're another country, you realise that, wow, China wants to take over. That was the impression that, and that's how, China sort of, they said they talked too much about it. Definitely they didn't take a Chinese approach to taking over the world. All right, so you got those 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 1, they were developing develop to a manufacturing power. They integrate information technology, and they want a 3-step strategy in terms of 2025, 35 and 49, and then there was 4 principles. So what does the 2025 refer to? Well, it refers to these 10 industries. And this is something as a group you may think about. You may think about the consequences for supply chain management by focusing on a particular industry. So that's one sort of group assignment topic that you can look at. And so you're probably thinking, oh, you know, any country would have a focus on these. Yeah, but China is the focus a little bit more strategic because they want to increase investment into a lot of these areas. As you can see, these are planned investment in the 2020-25 plan, and you can say that, well, you know, R&D's expenditure of the China as a percentage of GDP has been going up over time. Remember, up to over 2%. Once you get over 2%, then you start to say, wow, that bottom diagonal of that innovation framework, you know, R&D, like China is getting into that area, but it wasn't there 5 years ago. It wasn't there 10 years ago, but it's closer to that now, okay? Most developing economies are not there at that bottom triangle, and that's where you get sustainable innovation, okay? So think about that in terms of R&D per capita once you get over that 2%. All right. So are there other... This needs updating, this part here, but we can think about different companies that are in these 10 industries. You can also think about, okay, here are the foreign firms that are affected by these industries, and that changes from time to time. But here's the thing I want to show you. Here, this is where China scared other countries. They had, say for, let's have a look, we can go through these. For shipbuilding, they wanted to, sorry, that's not matching up with that. They wanted to actually be the #1 shipbuilder in the world by 2025. That is, 50% of whatever ships they build will be exported. They wanted to, in terms of railways, they want, wait a minute, I'm getting this mixed up a little bit. Okay, the robotics, which goes with the local. Okay, they want to make 70% of the robots that are purchased in China. Now, China is the largest purchaser of robots in the world, but they want to make 70% of those robots being purchased instead of buying from USA, Japan, and Germany. All right. And then we can look at railways. Look at railways in terms of they want to export 40%. 40% of all railway manufacture in China, they want to export 40%. So they had these grand plans to basically take over the world. So how big are these plans? Well, the 2025 plan is even much larger than the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. You're talking about 730 billion. The Belt and Road is 3 trillion. Like, you know, they've put 3 trillion to the Belt and Road. So that's, you know, there's a lot of money that's gone into that in terms of infrastructure. But the China government realizes that you cannot just put money into infrastructure without putting money into innovation. So that's why they chose 10 industries. Okay, what I'm going to do now in the next 5 minutes is just tell you about some of these industries very, very quickly. And then I'm going to show you some videos of what I've seen in some of the factories. Okay, here is something you need to look out for. This is a big trend that's going on. If we look at global sales of electric vehicles, look at that is 2015. All right, and BYD is the largest manufacturer of electric vehicles in the world today. It's the biggest today. It was the biggest back in 2015. Everyone hears about Tesla, all right? Tesla's only here. BYD is here. And that was 2015. So what does it mean? Well, let's go to 2018. Let's have a look. Okay, the Tesla Model 3 worldwide sales, 140,000. So how can you say BYD is bigger? Well, let's have a look. BYD has got this, selling this car 47,000. It's selling this car 46,000. It's selling this car 39,000. It's selling this car 37. This is how many units it's selling. Then this car 35. As you can see, BYD is leading the world in terms of electric vehicle manufacturing. So it's a big area where China is. Now, why do I keep on talking about BYD? Because the bus you take to Monash is made by BYD. And that bus is electric. Did you know that? Okay, all right. So you'll love that. All right, here's another story. How many of you know, is it Victoria Miracle? It's a brand. It's a brand for women's undergarments. Anyway, Regina Miracle. I've only been in one of their shops once, okay? All right? Anyway, so they make undergarments and the main factories are in China. Okay, I want you to think about innovation, all right, and how innovation goes from undergarments to some other part. That is, the big thing that Regina Miracle came up with was the stitchless, strapless bra. So they use a special glue in making that bra in the manufacturing process. And so the owner of, what is this brand here? Yell it out, come on. This is Under Armour. Okay, I'm not saying they're good. Remember, I don't promote any of the brands in this class. But the owner of Under Armour saw that manufacturing technology and said, wow, if you can do it for women's undergarments, maybe let's do that same technology for shoes. Wow. And so within a month of the CEO discovering that factory of Under Armour, he sent over half a dozen of his engineering team to the Regina Miracle factory to understand the manufacturing process. And now that manufacturing process is used for a lot of the footwear brands around the world. Adidas, Nike, Puma, but Under Armour was one of the first. What is that process? It is a process where they make shoes without any stitching. Where the upper, like this one here, your shoe. Can we take it off? No, it's all right. All right. Total one. All right. So the upper, there's no stitching at all. And the upper is knitted in a machine and then it's put into a conveyor belt and then it's actually glued to the sole. And I've been to a South Korean footwear factory back in 1991 and you just got row after row of people running sewing machines doing knitting on footwear, okay? Sewing, all right? Now, no sewing, nothing. So did Under Armour need to leave China, the high labour costs, and go to Vietnam because lower labour costs with its footwear? No, it didn't, because it changed its technology. Wow, this is what we talk about with innovation. It's what we mean by innovation. So everyone thought that, as China gets more expensive, everyone's going to move away from China. No, China gets smarter. And so the factories in China become smarter. And use of innovation, you can actually use China to your advantage. Okay, all right, so true story. There's some other stories there. We can talk about that another time. All right, so the big thing I want you to take away, this innovation framework, I want you to think about is different countries, emerging economy countries, have exploited this framework to different degrees. All right, and China, to large extent up until a few years ago, has basically focused on the top one, okay? then along come the unicorns, and we're talking about dozens of them now in China, startups that, like led by Xiaomi, that came along, 5, 6, 7 years ago and started focusing here. Okay? And what you'll learn later in this course, where multinationals are increasingly working in collaborating with factories in China. Puma, all right? Puma's doing it, IKEA's doing it, all the big brands that you know, they're all doing this. All right, efficiency-based innovation. So I want you to think about this framework and what different companies have exploited different parts of this framework, okay? All right, so let's have a look at the examples of robots. As you know, robot density in China is the lowest per head of population. Well, that's a strange factoid. Why? Because China has nearly 1.4 billion people. And so you divide that into any number, of course you're going to get a low number per head of population. Okay? All right? Compared to Korea, Japan, Germany, USA. Okay, that's in terms of robots in factories. Okay, they should do it per factory rather than, how many total robots divided by total factories rather than total population. But anyway, okay, notice that the projected demand of robots is going up. It's going up, and this is why part of the China 2025 plan, they focus a lot on robots. What have I seen in terms of robots in China? You can see that this is shipments by China. They make robots, and their shipments are going up because they want to dominate robot manufacturer in the world in the future. They want 70% of the purchases of robots in Chinese factories to be made by Chinese factories. They don't want to become reliant on Germany, Japan, and USA, who are the main robot manufacturers in the world. Okay, all right. I've visited all these companies. This is back in 2015, 16, 17. I visited all of these companies. You can see some of them you don't know. I've got a story for all of them, and I'll talk about some of these as we go through this course. But one of the big questions I wanted to ask is that how are these companies, how are they changing or competing to actually stay innovative? Like traditionally, companies in developing economies, they build their factory based on exploiting labour. It's very hard for them to make the leap and to go straight into robotics. It's very hard for them to actually change technology, change how they do factory making. All right? It's very, very hard. And on top of that, you add on different cultural challenges, and a lot of emerging economies, specifically Chinese, Taiwan's the same, you have factories being owned by families. Whereas in the West, in order for factories to survive, sometimes you consolidate. All right? But in China, two families don't like to come together. They don't see consolidation. They would sooner sell to a larger conglomerate. Two families would never join a factory and become bigger in order to survive. Okay? So you've got these cultural, familial factors that are challenging the need to innovate by factories in emerging economies. What is the case in other Southeast Asian countries? Anyone got any comments or examples? Anyone? Okay. You may want to think about that as a group project. Okay. How is the supply chain innovating in a particular country with respect to this framework, okay, the innovative framework. Okay. And then one day I go into Huayuan, this one here. What do they make? Let me think. They make tablets. Tablets. I'm not talking about medicine tablets. I'm talking about tablets, you know. I think, wow, how do you survive? Say, we have consolidated several factories and we've taken over other companies in order to survive. So they consolidated. And I'm thinking, wow, there goes my theory about Chinese families not consolidating. But they sort of consolidated in terms of a corporate entity, and then they bought factories rather than the families come together. Okay? All right, and I'm thinking, wow, things are changing. Consolidation works. Okay, so that was a really good example, this one here. And they wouldn't allow me to video their factory. So all I've got is a video of the person, my interview with that lady. And very, very interesting, because at that time, they just got delisted on Amazon for selling their tablets because they didn't respond to a customer's problem in time. So Amazon just delisted them. And they said to me, what do we do? What do we do? I said, okay, I think you need to have an Amazon strategy. Let's talk. All right. And so I talked to them about how they need to have someone in charge of customer service if they're going to try and sell on Amazon. All right. So anyway, enough. Let's move on. All right. Okay. Let's have a look. What do we got here? All right. Let's talk about automation. Here are our two hoverboard factories. Remember this first one. This is your really good one because now this is receiving inspection, and each of these batteries is 2,200 milliamp hours, and you put 20 of them together to make a 4.4 amp hour battery, and that becomes a battery unit for the hoverboard. That's standard worldwide. You don't make it larger, you don't make it smaller, and that's the unit here. Whereas this company here, this workshop, where you saw an earlier video of it with the quality manager going around, they don't care about receiving inspection. They receive these battery packs put together, and it's got Samsung written on the outside. And I said to them, how do you know if Samsung's on the inside or not? I said, well, Samsung's written on the outside. That's good enough for us. As you can see with the hard drive, you don't know what's on the inside unless you open it up. You don't know. Whereas this one here, they're putting the batteries together. You see that? You've got the 20 items. There's the 20 cells put in together, and then they solder them, then they turn up the other way around, solder them again, and actually make the whole battery pack. Okay? So that's a challenge to our live factory. We're going to talk more about that. But here's where we talk. There's some automation going on here, all right? So this is a very simple machine. We wouldn't call this Industry 4.0 automation, okay? This is just basic soldering by a machine, and then there's manual labor and actually spot welding the top of the batteries here, okay? So this is not Industry 4.0 automation that's going on in the factory here. All right, let's have a look at the next one. All right, let's fast forward. Okay, how many of you know this little company that makes a software, starts with W, and it's on most of your computers? Windows. So who's the company? Microsoft. And they make a gaming machine, is that right? What's the name of that? Come on. Oh, participation. Xbox. All right. And so what goes with the Xbox? The controller. How many of you have played with that controller, Xbox controller? Okay. This is the video of the registered factory for the Xbox controller. Okay. So I want you to think. Okay. Here's a factory in China that makes the Xbox controller, and you would think that maybe they would have some automation. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, this is not your average factory. This Microsoft sources from this factory, so it must be better than the average ones. You would think that, right? Okay, I just want you to be aware. Okay, so let's have a look. How automated is it? Like, I don't want to throw facts or data at you. I just want to see for yourself. The world is not that automated as you think. Okay, well, let's have a look. Let's see for yourself, okay? Hopefully it's... Yes, it is. This is the one. Okay, so this is the factory approved by Microsoft to make the Xbox, right? And so That's the game controller, right? All right? So there's not much automation there. Not much. This is not Industry 4.0 stuff. Okay? All right? It's very labour intensive. Something I'm going to show you when we come to week 6, we're going to spend a little bit more time on this, and that is the QC sheet. Okay? And why are we going to spend time on that? Because if you don't document the failures, I know that's in Chinese, but if you don't document them, then how do you know where you're making mistakes or when you're making mistakes, okay? But that's for week 5 or 6, we'll talk more about that, okay? That's controlling your supply chain, all right? So as you can see, there's, you know, this is not really Industry 4.0 stuff, all right? But this is the main factory that's making the Xbox game controller. Oh, interesting, isn't it? What they did show me, I said, oh, are you doing any innovation? They said, oh, they took us up to the next level and they had this big warehouse. And they said, oh, the main innovation we're doing is not robots. And that the main innovation is actually to use plantograms. What do we mean by that? It's like the hoverboard factory where the product doesn't move on a centralized conveyor belt. Oh, by the way, here's the only automation I saw here, okay? So this machine here can do the work of 3 people, okay? So normally they had 3 people doing the screwing. There's one person here that runs this machine, presses the button, and then it screws into the Xbox controller there, okay? This is not robotics. It's just minimal automation, okay? And you're probably thinking, wow, all this Industry 4.0 stuff, where is it happening? Well, it's not happening as fast as what the media talks about, okay? All right. Anyway, what is a plantogram? A plantogram type approach to factory management is not having an assembly line in the middle. What you do is you have little pods on the outside. And when you work on your pod and when you're finished, you move it to the next one. All right, so you're not picking and placing back onto the assembly line. Okay, all right. So what about a smartphone factory? Is a smartphone factory different? Well, here's an example. This is a smartphone factory. And you probably think, there must be some Industry 4.0 in here. No, not really. No. All right, bit of screwing, but still very machine intent. That's a machine, but that's not over robotics. And I haven't seen, this is the limits of what I've seen when I've gone to different smartphone factories. I've been to the HTC one in Taiwan, and they're not much more automated than this one. Okay, so automation, you know. This is there are automated factories there, but it gets, as you'll find out in week 7, it gets down to owner mindset. I want you to think about, if you're an owner, all right, I'll give the Chinese view, but I apologize, I'm not talking about India or Bangladesh and Vietnam, but if they've got $1 million to invest, they've got 2 options. One, do I buy a robot, or do I put the $1 million into property? Like, what would you do in a developing economy? Hands up if you would put it into the robot. Hands up if you put it into property. Then you know what I'm... All right, so that's the challenge. That's the huge challenge in emerging economies of trying to encourage Industry 4.0 adoption and innovation, okay? So you're not going to get widespread adoption of machines, and a lot of it is not because they don't have money, it's because the opportunity costs, the payback is a little bit more risky in their view. Okay, all right. We're going to our last part. All right, general condition of some very labour intensive. This is our smart. Oh, by the way, this was very, very interesting. You must look at this. pay attention here. This girl here, look at that. This is a smartphone. This is a clean room inside the clean room. And what you'll find inside the clean room, but before we got to there, let's just go back a bit. Let me just, it's not stopping. Anyway, where I showed you earlier, the air was just so crystal clear to smell. It feels like the anaesthetic you have before you go under in the operating theatre. Like it's just so pure. And the first time I saw a clean room inside a clean room, and that's what they were using it for, cleaning the glass, the TFT module, before it was connected to the final smartphone unit. You just saw the girl cleaning that earlier. Okay. All right. Let me just show you that again. There, that's it there. All right. I think that works. Okay. So that's the clean room inside the clean room. That's a glass there. I've got the camera going through the glass. All right. And so this is where they're just cleaning before they put the glass onto the smartphone. So it's, interesting stuff. All right. And like, that's not Industry 4.0, but it makes it much easier for when you're going into the factory. Okay, enough of that. What you're going to have to do, one of your groups, when you're presenting a case study, one of the case studies you have to do, case study, not group work, is you'll be comparing 2 sets of factory videos, 2 lots, factory A, factory B. And you're going to have to present to the class the differences between the 2, and then your recommendation of which factory you should source from. Okay, so there's 2 types of there's 2 groups, 2 pairs, 2 of those pairs of factories that you're going to do. Both of those cases I did a formal audit on, factory audit, not accounting audit, where I had to recommend to a US buyer which factory they should source from. And so I said, my audits are on steroids, because I don't just give you an audit report, I show you the videos of the factories. And so that's what we'll be doing. Okay, key takeaways. I haven't seen Industry 4.0 adopted like they are talking about it. Okay? What I have seen in China through the Belt and Road and the 2025 is that they are pushing it, but a lot of it is top-down push, not a bottom-up groundswell like Silicon Valley type innovation and development, except for what we'll find in week 6 when I talk about what some startups are doing in the region. It's amazingly interesting when it comes to IoT startups, biomedical startups, and fintech startups, probably that dominate a lot of the startups in the region, okay, across all the countries. IoT, biomedicine, and fintech, okay? And we talk about unicorns, and I'll talk about that when we get into those weeks. Okay, so what is the big thing to take away from this? First, number 2, remember, you always got to have a takeaway. At the end of the day, you come to Neil's class, what is the big thing you need to take away? All right? What is the big thing that I would like you to think about when you're presenting your case, working on your big report? Okay? It's the following, the innovation framework. Okay? And the examples of that. Because here's the thing, what you're going to learn in week 7 and week 8, I'm going to start introducing you to what multinationals are doing in their best supply chain management practice. And what they are doing is, I'm going to ask a question now, and I want a quick answer from all of you. Are you ready? Are you ready for the question? Got to get your minds ready now. You like listening to me talk all the time. Here's the question, okay? Do you think that multinationals are managed today compared to 5 years ago? today, are they managing more from a distance, or do you think they are closer in terms of collaborating with suppliers in emerging economies? So the answer, it's A or B, all right? So you've got 50% chance of being wrong, but if you use your professional knowledge, I'm pretty sure you can get it right. So hands up for they are more at arm's length. Hands up for they are closer now. Closer. So the next, second question. Yeah, and? Closer. Closer. Okay, all right. Okay. All right. So then the follow-up question is, I want you to think about this. Why are they closer? Think about that. I want you to think about next week. Why are they? Okay, if we agree that they are closer and they're collaborating, remember on the left side of the innovative framework, collaboration. Okay, they are collaborating. Yes, the answer is yes, they are. All right, don't worry. You're right. The answer is correct. All right, but I want you to. The question I have for you is why? Why are they closer? I want you to think about that. Pardon? Consumers. We could do a whiteboard exercise again. Why are they closer? All right, what we're going to do, let's have a short break for 5 minutes. Could be answer. All right, short break for 5 minutes, and I want you to write down 2 reasons why MMCs are closer on the whiteboard. Each group, you've got 1 minute to do that. Why? The answer is why. We know they're closer. The answer is why, okay? 2 reasons why. Two reasons why. You can have a break, 5-minute break. You can have a break too, so don't, all right? Get those reasons on the board, go and have a break. 5 minutes. Keep it separate, keep it separate. Maybe you over here.